Living with HIV, people with HIV. This is a sad story as told Mark Medicals by Timothy. Timothy had this to say how he got infected with HIV. Some background on me is necessary. I grew up very isolated. I had a single mother who worked during the day and went out with men at night, leaving me and my older brother to fend for ourselves. My brother would terrorize me physically and emotionally, so I learned very early on to hide and spend time by myself, mostly reading. I would say that my strongest emotional connection growing up was my cat. I wanted very much to be loved by someone, but was also afraid of girls. One consequence of this isolation was a social naivete. I guess I thought my innocence was a good thing. For me, a sexual fantasy was holding hands, or kissing, or slow dancing. That's as far as I ever fantasized. It was the intimacy I was longing for. My world was populated by the stories in the classic books I was reading, like Jane Austen and Victor Hugo. In a word, I ended up being rather romantic. Speed up to the future, I was 27 when I finally had my first girlfriend and sexual contact. It was scary but also happy. She was a good person. But I had issues, like she couldn't touch my whole body parts because I always associated it with being hit. To this day, if someone moves too quickly towards me, I flinch. The relationship lasted a year and ended amicably as we had more of a friendship than a passion. But this relationship was very healthy and healing for me. I never had sex with a stranger or outside of being in a relationship because for me sex was about intimacy, trust, and connection. My second girlfriend met me under interesting circumstances. I was giving money to a homeless man when this lady came up and said, "She got you." I thought it was a strange thing to say. She went and got a coffee, and when she came back she gave me her number. This had never happened to me before and I wasn't sure what to make of it. I actually threw it away. I mentioned it to a friend who said, "How often does a girl give you their number?" So hesitantly I fished it out of the trash about a week later and called her. We went a few dates. She made me laugh. I told her that I wouldn't have sex until we had gotten to know one another better and become friends. She said he could wait. Eventually, I decided that I was in love, so we had the talk that I had had with my first girlfriend, which had worked out well. I told her that we should get tested for STDs and then wait 6 months and get tested again before we had any sex that could be risky. We would vow to be monogamous. She told me she was HIV negative and that she was fine with waiting for test results. 6 months later she told me she was still negative, and as was I. Condoms represent distrust. I understand their importance. But what I was longing for was a deep, romantic love. To be sexual was only a symbol of connection and intimacy. To use a condom literally meant that you were putting a barrier between you and the other person. This agreement to get tested and wait and get tested again seemed like a way to achieve this without becoming infected. It's a matter of trust, and trust is fundamental to a relationship. We moved in together. I loved her more than I have ever loved anyone before or ever will again. I now think the concept of a soulmate is repugnant, but I suppose that was the feeling. I believed in the romance we are spoon-fed in books, movies, and TV, and that's what I wanted. So I stayed in the relationship even though there was a lot of strange psychological abuse happening. For example, one day many months into the relationship my girlfriend suddenly developed allergies to my cat. The only solution seemed to be to give him away. It was painful, but I did it. About a week later, while I was visiting friends, I returned to find she had gotten a kitten. She never consulted me about it and she magically didn't have allergies anymore. She did all sorts of strangely hurtful things to me like this. It's like she was trying to break me down piece by piece. There was little to no emotional intimacy. I remember once having to ask her to say hello to me when he came home. My girlfriend revealed that she had been sexually abused by her father growing up and later by her rabbi. I was sad for her, obviously. I didn't know much about the repercussions of such a thing. She seemed to have put it all behind her. In truth, it wasn't that simple. After an unhappy year together, we broke up. I still loved her and was devastated. I had never been broken up with anyone before. I had never been in love before. So it's like I went through all the crushing feelings straight people experience in high school, but I was 30. We had stopped having sex in October. The relationship ended in December. I had continued getting HIV tests regularly as a matter of course. In January, I found out I was HIV positive. When I told her, her only response was, "It's not a death sentence." There was no surprise on her part, no outrage or curiosity. I hadn't had sex with anyone else, so I knew it came from her. I went into a really bad state for about 2 years. I was grieving the loss and betrayal of someone I loved and trusted. I also had what I would call an identity crisis. I was struggling to understand. I was seeing 2 therapists almost every day. I would cry a lot. I had trouble being alone, which was something I had never experienced before. Eventually, I tried to kill myself. I took all the pills I could find with a bottle of liquor and filled a bathtub with water so I could drown. The pills hit me almost immediately and I passed out next to the tub before I could get into it. I spent a good deal of time trying to figure out what had happened to me. Through various means of research, some ordinary and some sneaky, I learned a lot. I learned that often when children are abused, they see the world as divided between either victims and predators. At some point, that child chooses to identify with one or the other. I suppose I'm more the type to be a victim. I don't like hurting others. My girlfriend had chosen to be a predator. For her, she's the only person who really matters. Other people are generally fools. She had HIV all along and she knew it. I uncovered something she had written early in our relationship on my computer that convinced me. Other things I heard indicated she had done this to others before me. You know how you hear about someone like Ted Bundy and it's just this crazy story? It's so strange to actually meet someone like that. Someone so charming but actually hollow inside. You may think you are prepared, but trust me, you aren't. They are chameleons. You know how you hear about people staying in abusive relationships and you think, I'd never do that. Sometimes you only put the pieces together after the fact. I was a perfect target, a perfect fool. My innocence and inexperience along with my overwhelming need to be loved romantically was something a predator could smell a mile away. It's now 14 years later. I have been celibate that entire time. I've decided I never want to feel how that relationship made me feel ever again. I trust no one. I do not want to have sex without a relationship, and I cannot allow myself to be in a relationship ever again. I like knowing that I will never give HIV to anyone. I can't change the world, but I can stop its transmission with me. If anyone is wondering, I did contact a lawyer about prosecution. This was in California, and she told me the laws were very strong in protecting someone with HIV, even if she was infecting others knowingly. He told me there was nothing she could do. I wonder if anyone will actually hear all of this. I wonder how many of you will call me a fool, like she did. I can't say you're wrong. I've never been able to find the line between trust and foolishness. Okay guys, alright, this was so sad story of living with HIV. Right. Please support Mark Medicals by subscribing to this channel. It costs you nothing to subscribe, but it tremendously helps us by showing how helpful we are to the world. Thanks.